Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In a haul a little while ago, I asked you guys which foundation you wanted to see me test out next, and the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea Water Foundation won hands down, so that is what I'm going to be testing out today. Some of you guys may already know that the Tarte Amazonian Clay Foundation has been my favorite for like multiple years now, so I have very high hopes for this product. If you enjoy these foundation reviews, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button down below, that way I will continue to do them in the future. And if you are new to my channel, I would really love it if you would hit subscribe down below, that way you can keep an eye out for all of my future videos and foundation reviews. And as always, if there is a foundation you want to see me test out that I have not already, you can leave it as a comment down below. The more foundation gets requested, the faster I review it. First of all, for price, this is $47 Canadian or $39 USD, and you get the standard foundation size. The packaging is quite nice. It's like a very luxe frosted glass bottle. Get this beautiful like purple to gold ombre lid, and then it is a dropper style packaging. The one downside to this is that it's kind of like a tight fit when you put the lid back into the product, and I can see that getting very messy very quickly. There's currently 12 different shades available in this foundation. I use the Temptalia foundation matrix, and I chose the shade Light Sand, which is light with yellow undertones. I think this is going to be a tiny bit dark for me currently because I bought this kind of with summer in mind. I went a tiny bit darker than I usually would. It claims to be full coverage and have a soft radiant finish. It's also supposed to be very lightweight and hydrating. They say the formula is 20% water, and although it is a primarily water-based foundation, it does still have silicone in it, so that's something to be aware of if you have any sensitivities to silicone. It's supposed to give you 12-hour wear, cover redness, dark spots, and uneven skin tone. It's also supposed to blur and perfect the look of pores and fine lines. It's hypoallergenic, it's also hydrating, I believe I said that, and it does have an SPF of 15 in it as well. So you're supposed to be able to kind of customize the coverage based on how many drops of this foundation you use. It says for medium to full coverage to use 3 to 4 drops. I'm of course going for full coverage since I have a lot of scarring. My face is really red right now because I just finished blow drying my hair, so I've got a lot to cover up, and they do have a brush that goes with this as well. It's just like a dense flat top brush, so that's what I'm going to use today. But I'm going to clip my hair back and we're going to get started. Alright, so I've already gone ahead and primed the left half of my face. Today I chose the Tarte Clean Slate Flawless 12-Hour Brightening Primer. I chose this because it is silicone free. That's another thing to keep in mind since this is primarily water-based. Water-based foundations tend to not work that well with heavily silicone-based primers. Just another thing to keep in mind, so it says to drop the product directly onto the brush, so that is what I'm going to do. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, you do have to shake this beforehand, but I've already done that. So I'm going to, I think, start with 2 drops on the brush. I'm just gonna drop that directly on. So that's about 2 drops there. And it just says to lightly kind of buff it in the skin, so I'm gonna use very light pressure and just kind of start on this half of my face. Okay, so that did not do much at all. It just kind of all sunk into the brush, which this brush is synthetic, so it doesn't really absorb the product, but it all just kind of disappeared into there, and you can hardly even tell I did anything. I'm gonna try a few drops on the back of my hand instead and kind of pick it up with the brush and see if that works a little bit better. Okay, so that did a little bit better. Like I predicted, the shade's a bit too dark for me, but that's fine. I want to use it when I'm like self-tanned and everything. But it's not giving me that good of coverage. It's applying really nicely, like it's not streaky or anything like that, but the coverage is just not that great. I'm thinking maybe I should switch to the Beauty Blender, so I think I'm gonna go grab that really quickly. So I'm gonna take a couple more drops of this foundation on my hand and try the Beauty Blender on the other half of my face to see if it makes a difference. So the Beauty Blender was way better, as I'm sure you guys can see, and as you probably noticed, I went ahead and redid the right half of my face using the Beauty Blender as well. Coverage was a lot better. I'm really surprised. So even though Tarte recommends using a flat top brush, I would say definitely go for the sponge instead. I thought it would absorb a lot of the product and shear it down, but it really did a lot better in terms of coverage. It did a really good job covering just my general redness, and I think it actually did a really good job covering my scarring as well. Like there's just a tiny little bit peeking through on this side, but I think that's because I did start with the brush. If I went with the Beauty Blender right off the bat, that would probably look a lot better. I will say, however, though, that it's not as bad as some other luminous foundations I've tried. Like it definitely isn't drawing too much attention to my pores or anything. It's just like a matte finish always kind of masks that a little bit better if you have texture on your skin. I think it looks pretty good all in all though. I'm really glad the Beauty Blender amped up the coverage quite a bit because I was not happy with the coverage from the brush. I have heard some people say that this foundation has a really strong SPF smell, but I'm not getting any scent from it at all. I think the primer did definitely help though because the coverage was definitely more buildable on this side, and it does look a little bit more smooth and even, but it applied really nicely. Like the application was pretty flawless and effortless. But I'm gonna do a close up and show you guys what it's looking like now, and then do my usual like finishing off my face makeup and my brows, and I'll talk to you guys in a second. Alright, so my base and my brows are done. For concealer, I use the NYX HD just in my eye area and to highlight a little bit. No spot concealing needed in my opinion. And then to set all over, I use the RCMA No Color Powder. I am liking this quite a bit. I'm liking it more than I thought I would, honestly. I think it looks pretty natural. The finish is quite nice. I just wish I had used the Beauty Blender to start, so the coverage was a little bit better in this area. But the coverage is like really good otherwise. I forgot to mention, but I think obviously from the name Water Foundation, it does have a very thin liquidy consistency, which typically you don't get this much coverage from a foundation with this kind of texture. So that is really nice. I think it did apply a little bit better on the primed side of my face, so I would definitely say don't skip a primer with this. I would also say that it does live up to the lightweight claim. It doesn't feel too heavy on my skin at all. It just feels very light and like I'm not wearing a full coverage foundation. So if you do want a good amount of coverage but don't like that feeling, you might really like this. I also do think it feels quite hydrating as well. It doesn't feel like tight or uncomfortable on my skin in the slightest. I did have to use quite a bit of it. Whenever a foundation says like, oh, you need like 3 drops to cover your entire face or whatever, I always just like don't believe it at all. I've never personally had that experience with a foundation. I know I do have a lot of scarring and redness and stuff. With products like this though that make that kind of claim, I always feel like even if my skin was better, I would still want to use more than they say, because a lot of times it's not even enough to like evenly coat my entire face, if you know what I mean. I don't know exactly how much drop wise of this foundation that I used, but it was definitely more than 3 to 4 drops, which is what they said for medium to full coverage. I would say like I probably used like a full dropper of this foundation, like the full little kind of like tube in here to get this level of coverage, which I don't mind doing. I never expect to get full coverage from 3 drops of product. Yeah, so far I am pretty impressed with this foundation. Of course, we'll have to see how it wears. My skin's pretty normal at the moment, but just over like the past week and a half, I have been getting oily on my nose. So we shall see how it wears, of course. As per usual, I'm going to do my close-up like this, and then my close-up with the rest of my makeup done. And of course, I will be doing my check-ins throughout the day. I feel like it just has a very nice skin-like kind of quality to it though, but I'll zoom in and show you guys what it looks like. A really quick check-in. It's just after 9, which is a little bit later than I would have liked to do this, but I've had a really busy day. So I've had this foundation on for just about 8 hours now, and this is mostly going to be this is what it's looking like check-in, because I don't have a ton to update on. Not a lot has changed. My face is looking seriously darker than my neck right now, but I promise you it's just the lighting in person. It looks really good. But yeah, like I said, not a ton to update on, but I have to say I'm really liking this foundation so far. We'll have to see how it holds up over the next few hours or so, but for like 8 hours it's still looking really good. All of my other products applied over top of it really nicely, and I'm just really enjoying it so far. Like I said, the lighting is super weird, but this is what it's looking like close up. I think it's just really flattering on my skin, honestly, but I will give a more in-depth kind of conclusion to the review in my final check-in later on. It is almost 12:30 now, so I've had this foundation on for pretty much 12 hours. I'm just gonna jump right into the pros and cons. First pro is that it does have really great coverage when applied properly. If you want good coverage from this foundation, the Beauty Blender is definitely the way to go. However, I feel like this could be a good thing for some people because it's really truly like customizable coverage. You can really do light coverage all the way up to like a full coverage with this. So it'd be good if you have good skin and like want lighter coverage for like an everyday basis, and maybe fuller coverage for like special occasions and you don't want multiple different products. Second pro is that it applied really well. I mean, that's always a bonus when foundations feel like they're quick to apply and there's no fuss with them. One thing that I really liked is that it retained a bit of radiance even after setting it, which as someone who has typically oily skin, but I like a more radiant finish, that's really nice because usually once I powder my skin, that finish is totally gone, but it still looked very natural and a little bit radiant even once I applied the RCMA powder. It is very lightweight. I really don't feel like I have foundation on my face, and it has like a very second skin kind of texture. It's not like super blurring for like pores and fine lines. It does help a little bit, but like they still show through, and it really just, it's still like they show through in a way that isn't terrible. It really just keeps it looking like skin instead of like a poreless mask, if you know what I mean. Which I don't mind looking flawless and poreless, but I'm just trying to say that it looks very natural. It's also very transfer proof. Like it hasn't really worn off even when I've been like leaning on my face and stuff like that, especially in comparison to the Amazonian clay. That product just isn't that great in terms of transferring. And my final pro is that it does have the SPF 15 in it. I feel like more foundations should have an SPF. Like most people aren't like going on photo shoots and like taking pictures all the time, so I don't understand why more foundations don't have that SPF. I don't know. I really appreciate that it does have the sunscreen. One neutral thing is that I feel like it did do a little bit better on the primed side of my face. It's not a drastic difference or anything, but the coverage built up a little bit easier. I only have two cons. The first is that it did oxidize ever so slightly, which I think wouldn't be an issue if this foundation wasn't already a tiny bit dark for me, but I think it still looks fine. Like it looks a little bit darker on camera, but it looks totally fine in person, so that's a minor thing. And second is that in some areas, after having it on for this long, it is just like sitting a little bit funny. I find especially where I have my highlight, like I'm wearing Becca Moonstone, which is like buttery smooth, and it looks kind of like chunky, for lack of a better word. It's just not sitting that great, but aside from that, on the rest of my face, I feel like it looks really nice and really flattering. So as you may be able to tell from the fact that I have far more pros than cons, I'm quite a fan of this foundation so far. My first impression is really good. Like I said earlier, I like had really high hopes for this foundation, but at the same time I didn't. Like I've just heard really mixed things, so I was really afraid I wasn't going to like it, so I'm very pleasantly surprised. It feels hydrating, it feels comfortable. I feel like even when I'm oily, I could get away with this foundation. I'd probably just need something slightly more mattifying, but it's held up so well and it is so transfer proof. I think it would do fine on oily skin as well. I do like how versatile it is in terms of being able to take it from light to full coverage. So to kind of conclude, yes, I really like this foundation. It's something I'm totally going to continue to use, and I can see myself really liking it for the summertime because it is so lightweight, and like I said, it does have that little bit of SPF in it. I would recommend it, honestly, if you think this is something you're going to like. I'd say try it out. I think it's worth it. I don't know, I think it looks pretty good. Of course, you guys will have to let me know what you think down below. I'm really happy that I've ended up liking this foundation. But anyways, give this video a thumbs up if you do like these foundation first impressions. That way I will do more of them in the future. Don't forget to check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. I'm at Sari Rihanna on all three. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe down below if you haven't already. And I will talk to all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys. Really warm neutral eye that I've been wearing a ton lately. I've been wearing it in a lot of recent videos, and it's what I wore in all of my Toronto vlogs, and it is featuring the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Jelly palette.